The views and opinions expressed on the episode belong to the speakers and do not represent the views or positions of any entity that they represent.
Hello and welcome to Educators Commune Conversations. This is the second episode in the Bachpan Manao Badhte Jao series. In the first episode, I was joined by Deepika Mugli Shetty, the Chief of Policy and Partnerships at Ekstep Foundation, and we spoke about the mission that is Bachpan Manao. Today, I'm joined by three collab actors who believe in this mission and they're furthering it through their programs and initiatives of their organizations. So, welcome to the podcast, Tini, um, Amita, and Samyukta.
Hello.
Hi, a very good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for making the time and being here. So let's begin with a round of introductions, and if you could speak about the organizations that you represent and your role within the organization. So I invite you, Samyukta, Tini, and Amita, to share with our listeners a little bit about yourselves, your organizations, and your
Yeah.
role within the organization.
Hello, my name is Samyukta and I work with Pratham. Pratham has been working in the field of education for about 30 years now. And interestingly, we began our work in Mumbai with early childhood education. We focused on quality of education and working with government systems to improve it both in class and in the community. I've been with Pratham for more than 16 years now, and I joined Pratham as a volunteer. And I currently lead the early years programs at Pratham along with another colleague of mine. Early years meaning both preschool education and early grades, that's grades 1 and 2. Happy to be here. Thank you, Sana.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to connect with Samyukta again. So, I'm Tini Sahni. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Aga Khan Foundation. I'm based here in Delhi. AKF has been working on early childhood development. I think it is one of our oldest programs. So, we've been working in India for the last 46 years, and early childhood development has been one of our core implementation areas. We're also really happy that we have learned over these years. We have honed our approaches related to early childhood development. We work with children in the age group of 0 to 8. So there's a lot of work with the communities that we do. And then we also work with the ECD systems, with the Anganwadi centers. And it's been wonderful to be a part of this trajectory. It's also one of our happiest programs, I would say, to go into the field and to see happy children, caregivers who are so engaged with their children. So I'm really happy to be a part of this podcast, and with my two wonderful co-speakers, Samyukta and Amita. So thank you so much, Sana, for inviting us, and for we're really happy to be a part of this.
Hi, Samyukta and Tini. Glad to meet both of you, and it's really nice to hear about your work. I'm one of the co-founders and directors of EduWeave Foundation. We work in the space of early childhood care and education. We specifically work in the area of content development for children, parents, and system functionaries. We also are working on district transformation program in the district of Raipur, wherein we are working with all the Anganwadis of the district. So there again, we are working on same areas, and it is wonderful to work in this area. I've been a teacher. I've been a teacher educator. I've been working in this space for around 20 years. EduWeave is young, but I come with an experience of around 2 decades in this field. So it's always it's always great to see children working in their spaces. So thank you so much for inviting me here.
Thank you so much. So let's delve into this conversation by touching upon that important learning from your initial research, which suggested the prevalence of a scarcity mindset among stakeholders and caregivers. And if you can begin talking about the programs and initiatives that you've been working on with that took shape by wanting to address that scarcity mindset, specifically with the mothers groups, the melas, and the public groups that Pratham is working towards, the Khel Konas and the Khel Gaon, the Broom messages, and the Gatbo Bachpan from EduWave. So if you can, each of you can speak about these programs and initiatives and how they took shape from that scarcity mindset and how they are working towards addressing that specific prevalence among stakeholders and caregivers.
Um, I'm sure all the initiatives here are going to be very exciting to hear. I can go first. We do a lot of work, as I mentioned, both in class with teachers, but also with communities and in particular with parents. So here, I would like to talk about two such initiatives that we have with parents of young children. So, children in preschool, in Anganwadis, in pre primary classes in government schools, or even in grades 1, 2, and 3. We try to ensure that we teach in and reach out. So, in the reaching out, there are parents and communities for them to play an important role in the learning of their children. And learning, as we know, is through play in this age group. And so how do we open that out for parents, and how do we try to build the confidence and understanding of parents for them to know that they too can help with supporting their children's learning. That's where we are coming from, and having experimented with different kinds of initiatives during COVID and after. Two such things that we thought worked really well in villages and in cities around Anganwadis and government schools. One is the school readiness mela that we often talk about, and the other is what we call engagement with mothers groups, and the two are connected. So if I begin with the mela concept, it's almost like like we've just come out of election season. So if you imagine booths where people go to vote, and each booth is about a domain in preschool education, let's say cognitive, physical, something around language. So each booth is like that, and there you have some simple low cost materials organized on each table. So for example, if I want children to count, then you could have some stones there, some pebbles there, or some potatoes and onions on the table for the child to count, or to separate out the potatoes from the onions on one table. You could have children walking on a curvy line to see if they're able to walk with balance. You could have a discussion around where are children coming from, what did they see on the way, to understand if they're able to communicate what they think. And so small, simple, playful activities on each table to open out for parents and children what that breadth of skills means in the foundational years. And what we do is, if you have children entering grade 1 or in grades 1 and 2, then it's about our children ready for school, and inviting parents, typically the mother and the child, come into this mela is like a fair, and they come in and they register themselves. They get a report card, and then they go to each table, and the mother sees her child doing many of these activities, and the community often gathers because it's this huge event. So there's a lot of mobilization before, and then there is all of this happening where everyone's watching. And then there's something that parents understand about what learning is all about in the early years and what they can do at home. So typically you'll see parents, looking at children, encouraging them, sometimes scolding them also, saying, oh, can't you do this, do it better, trying to help them. And children, even older children, coming in and saying, we want to do this too. It looks like it's great fun because there's coloring and there's jumping and so many other things going on. So it's a festive atmosphere. And by the end of by the time you've completed all the booths, you reach the end, and there's a volunteer there who talks to the parent and the child about what the mother can actually do at home, having been to this mela. And that's the point at which we try to talk about what is it that she's seen and what is it she would do at home, and would she like to come back for another mela to see what happens 2 months down the line with her child and her. The people who organize the mela are generally volunteers from that village, and we try to keep it low cost. And the idea is to have fun, but I would say there are 2 3 specific objectives that we have in mind when we do this. One is celebrating the role of the parents and the guardians in the learning of their children, and the other is opening out that play and learning and everything going hand in hand is not just about uh, reading and numeracy or homework. It can be a lot of other things, and also for families to gain first-hand experience of what it means to support their children at this age. So that's all about the school readiness mela. It's written in the Nipun Bharat document also, and we're doing it in many states, statewide and elsewhere. And very quickly, I'll just touch upon the concept of mothers groups here. By the end of the mela, we encourage mothers to form, to they have friends in their neighborhood, even in their own homes, who are mothers of young children. And so we say, let's form groups of mothers wherever mothers can meet. If they can meet every week for just half an hour, then we will send them an idea card over the phone, and that idea card would have ideas around what mothers would know more about, but also what they can do with their children. And so these mothers groups meet at a convenient time and place every week. They get a message on a smartphone. There's a leader mother anchoring it. And the idea behind that is that the mothers, like all of us, I think we need support systems around us. And so it's the mother is not alone in what she's trying to do. The parent is not alone in what she's trying to do. Sometimes grandmoms also come in to try and do what they would like. But the mothers groups then forward this idea of learning through the year by meeting every week. They have fun themselves, and they also have a lot of fun at home with their children. So, just two ideas here around how we can build in community involvement and get them to understand that play is learning, learning is play. Yeah.
So I think just building on Samyukta's points in terms of play is learning and learning is play, I'm really happy to share the concept of Kale Konas. So it's a very simple concept, nothing very hi-fi about it, but we were very keen to have parents engage with their child, say much beyond just say the feeding or picking up the child when the child is crying, and also to ensure that does not in a way burden the parent more. Also the idea that if I need to buy toys, I have to go outside, I have to spend money. So it came from that can we have engaging material within the home that parents can easily make and can become a very good enjoyable for the child. The Khel Kona is a designated space in every household where the parents actually fashion little toys from material that is easily available. So we've had fathers actually use old tires to make little swings that are there in the Khel Kona. Mothers have actually really taken their stitching skills and fashioned a whole host of little toys. So you have gajar, muli, red gajar, carrots, the radishes are white. So with these little toys, one is that the child can start feeling them when they're younger, so they know that this is what texture this is and all of that. And as they grow older, it's also colors. As they grow even older, it is also what vegetables grow above the ground, what vegetables grow below the ground. So the Kale Kona actually becomes that little space in the home where the mother can keep a watch on the child as she's doing her normal work, and also engages the child. We've also seen Kale Konas be gradually modified as the child grows up to also become a place of learning for the child when the child starts going to the school. It also builds engagement as the child goes to the Anganwadi center, because at the Anganwadi center, the parents also see that the Anganwadi teachers telling the children a story. So if there's a story about a little mouse, can I make a little mouse, and can I then have that story actually come back to the children when they come back home. We've seen a lot of joy, a lot of happiness around these Khel Konas. They're really lively little places within the home. And parents have actually outdone themselves in the kind of material that they have developed for these Khel Konas. Taking the concept of Khel Konas even further is, how can we look at villages and make them child friendly, so that say the point that Samyukta was saying, that when children walk to the Anganwadi, can we make that little pathway a pathway of happiness and a pathway of learning, so that children are always learning from that? Can it be a little walkabout, a bench that they can walk on, so you remember that as well? Also trying to bring the environment into homes. So many times parents actually have used leaves to teach the children counting, or to teach the children little shapes as well, because there are different leaves in the village. It also builds the feel for texture, because we feel that that is a very important skill for little children as well. So the concept of Khel Gaons is happy environments for children, because we very strongly believe that when children are happy, they will be healthy. When children are happy, parents are engaged with them. I mean, it's a circle. Parents engagement leads to happiness and bonding. The child feels secure as well. So that, I think, has been some of the initiatives that we have done. The Bloom Messages is actually, there is a global app which has very good messages for children, that has been developed by the Bezos Family Foundation. We found the app really relevant, so we were in touch with them, and we requested if we could actually contextualize those messages to the Indian context. So we first piloted this in Telangana and in Uttar Pradesh, and we've contextualized all of these messages into messages that can, the parents can kind of use. So, and then we also have a translation, that how does this little play actually contribute to the brain development of your child. So for example, something like Luka Chippy, peekaboo, right? So it's such a simple idea. It makes the child just so much happier, and there's a little game that it can play with the caregiver, the grandmother, or the father, or the mother. But there is it also contributes to brain development. So we've, each of these messages, we've also highlighted how that is going to help the development of the child. So how do we actually ensure that play is recognized as necessary for child development? I think that is the pathway that we have really tried to build through the Khel Konas, through the Khel Gaons, Khel Gully, because in urban areas you don't have the concept of a village, so you have a little street where the children play, and then this basket of messages that have been developed. So the messages are very much in the public domain. We have also developed an app, the Palan 1000 app, which is part of the Government of India Palan 1000 campaign. And the app also has these messages, and one can register on the app through the Google Play Store. So these are some of the ideas, but I think intrinsic to it, like Samyukta said, is to recognize that play has a very important role in the development of children. Happy children are healthier children. So, how do we create spaces for happy childhoods?
It's great to hear about your work, Tini and Samyukta. It brings in so much happiness within me also hearing all these stories. But, I'll take you to a very, very serious thing when we talk about mindsets, because mindsets are so implicit. At times, we are not even aware of those mindsets. When we talk about a teaching learning situation, then it becomes all the more important. The way a parent engages with his or her child, or the way Anganwadi workers engage with children, sometimes they themselves are not aware of their own conception about learning, their own conception about children. So sometimes it becomes very, very important for us to help them see their own belief systems explicitly. So we conducted a need assessment, and we found that children were very happy in Anganwadi centers. Children, they enjoy being with each other. They were engaged in a variety of activities, but the actual time wherein they were engaged with the Anganwadi worker was very less. It was like around 1 hour or 1.5 hours, depending on the availability of Anganwadi worker. And the kind of activities they were doing there were very random. Today we can do painting, then tomorrow we can do balancing activity, then we can do anything else. In language, they are just reading Varnmala, ka kha ga ga, till the end. So there is no structure associated to it. When I talk about structure, I'm not denying the value of play. I'm talking about the structure of the curriculum. What is to be taught? What should we teach young children? And how should we teach that? So play, definitely, it is an unsaid thing that play is the methodology. But then helping Anganwadi workers finding out the right kind of activities for different age groups. How should they work with different age groups? It was a major challenge. So what we did was, we started with capacity building workshops, and there we created lots of spaces for Anganwadi workers to talk about what do they think about children. How should we teach children? We gathered their thoughts and then we presented a different perspective to them. We did a variety of activities with them, as you both were mentioning, school readiness mela and activities with parents. When they were engaged with those activities, we asked them, what did you learn? What is it that you are finding different from what you have been doing? They said, we are doing play based activities. But then we asked them, what is the difference between the needs of a 3-year-old child and a 4-year-old child? What is the difference between the needs of 6-year-old children who are about to enter grade 1? So all these things, they help them reflect. Now our field workers also, they visit Anganwadi workers. They talk to them about their reflections when they work with different age groups. We also do a regular appreciation thing for Anganwadi workers, wherein we choose one person every week who has done great in her Anganwadi center. She speaks about her experiences to other people, and then she also says that what changes has it brought in to her and her children and her interaction with parents. So this has really helped us build a culture wherein the Anganwadi workers have started thinking about what are they doing and why are they doing it. We provide them with the content on a regular basis, which is divided age wise. It has a progression, like horizontal progression and vertical progression. So for us, these few activities have really, really helped us change their mindset in terms of working with children. uh, we and play, definitely, they are very well equipped. Anganwadi workers are very well equipped when it comes to interacting with young children. They connect instantly with young children. So this really helped them pick up the content. Play was already there. We are definitely working on play based methodology also with them. So it is really helping us bringing in a change in the mindsets of Anganwadi workers.
No, I think the point that Amita made in terms of mindsets. So, yes, that is, of course, very important, because often the mindset is that a child just, like, especially little children, they need food, they need security. If we look after that part of it, then, it's kind of, we're doing the best we can for the child. But I think little children, what they need is also engagement by caregivers, because that is how their curiosity will be aroused and all of that. So therefore the mindset, like, often to tell mothers that there's a lot of impact on child development when children play. So allow them to play. Mitti ke saath khelne do, let them make their little toys with mitti, let them do what they can with that, because that's how their little hands are developing. So I'm saying, and it's not that, if we look at traditional knowledge, traditional wisdom, it was very much there. I think somewhere along the line, it kind of changed, and we started looking at, toys purchased only from the market, as if that was the only way in which children could actually develop their little bones or have their minds develop. But I remember, I mean, even in our own childhoods, we've seen a lot of that, being very close to nature, picking up stones, picking up, like, say, the pyaz aloo that Samyukta spoke about. You can learn about shapes from what is available in your kitchen. You don't have to go out and buy a ball or something like that. So I think the focus on changing mindsets and allowing children the space to really play, I think, for all three of our organizations, I think that is a very strong focus.
And like you said, when you even when you go out and you buy a box of toys for the child, more than the toy, the child is interested in the box because it presents endless opportunities. And it connects back to that, what, like, what's a few things which underpin what the activities that you are doing in your respect with your respective organizations, is that they are easily replicable at home with materials that can be sourced from the environment where children are playing, and parents are around them. They're also age appropriate, and also the fact that they don't have to do this in isolation, because play very much is something that you do in company. And although you do have children going through different stages of play, it is definitely something that you do in company. So even among parents, creating that sense of community so that they feel supported in their endeavor as they develop their awareness of how important this engagement is and how possible it is with their child, right? So I mean, while each of these initiatives is unique in their own way, they specifically work within that window of opportunity of 1 to 8 years. And like you said, Samyukta, learning is play and play is learning. They believe, like, play is the way. So if you can, like, go a little bit into, I know you've shared a little bit through your programs, like some of the stories that have come about, but if you can share a few more of these stories of how children and different stakeholders have engaged with these programs and initiatives, and across different contexts, if you've noticed like anything different from how, say, a child in one part of the country engages with this vis-a-vis in another part of the country, or just different like context in terms of being in a rural or an urban area. If you can share a few of these stories of engagement.
Sure. We can start with Tini or Amita, and maybe I can also add. Yeah.
So I think one thing that we've seen as a result of, say, the Khel Kona concept is the increase in fathers' engagement in child development. I mean, that has been one thing that we've really seen and really happy, because often the care of little children is often considered as the mother's responsibility, and it can be a bit difficult, particularly as women have so many other tasks to do. So how do we really build that it is a shared responsibility, and it is not only the mother who is responsible for that? So the concept of the Khel Kona is also that everyone in the home actually contributes to that. I mean, all of us generally in our work see that looking after the child, all of that is often the responsibility of only the mother. And if it comes that it's only her responsibility, it can be very difficult for her if she has to take on all of that responsibility alongside all the other work that she does, going to the fields, tending to the fields, looking after the livestock, then coming back, managing the house, the cooking, all of that. So the Khel Kona was also an idea where everyone in the home actually contributes, and child development becomes a family responsibility. So if the father can do something at the Khel Kona, or when he returns from the fields or from his work, whatever, he can spend some time at the Khel Kona with the children, bring in children from the neighboring houses also. So it becomes nice and exciting. With grandmothers, we also brought in the whole concept of storytelling. You can tell stories. In our work in Bihar, we also invested time in documenting some of the traditional stories that grandmothers had told children, and bringing that back in a printable form in a book, using also traditional art forms that existed there. So children could see a mouse or a goat or whatever. Also, one thing that we did during COVID was also to start learning walls in villages, just to ensure that the engagement with children started. So a child would put up a paheli on one of the walls, other children would kind of respond, or a little poem, or a little drawing. So I think one thing that we have seen with this focus has been the increased engagement of other key stakeholders in the community in child development. Also, the say the dialogue between the system, that is the Anganwadi system, and the parents, because as children transition to the Anganwadi centers and they see that in the Anganwadi centers similar concepts are there, there's a lot of focus on storytelling, all of that, that is then taken back into the home as well. So I'd say ensuring other involvement of other stakeholders has been a very strong a result that we have seen. Also, the change in gender stereotypes. I mean, I remember one of my visits to Uttar Pradesh where a mother had actually made a little doll for a boy, and he came to meet me and all of that. And I remember that he told me that he'd named this little doll Bituki, and she had to accompany him wherever he went. So we were going for a village meeting, and Bituki also had to go with him. But what struck me was the way he was looking after that little doll. So I mean, often you think that dolls are only for little girls, but here it's also the breaking of the gender stereotypes around toys and around games as well, that we've seen. So discussions also, say, with panchayat members on safety security within the space that children, like suppose children going to the Anganwadi center have to cross a main road. So can we then start a dialogue that parents can take it in rotation to actually have children cross the road collectively? Again, that builds bonds, because you want your little friend to be there when you're crossing the road together. So one day it's your mother who's taking the kids across, one day it's someone else's father taking the kids across. So it's also that how do we make all stakeholders aware about the importance of investing in environments that are conducive to children. So I think those would be some of the results, some of the impact involving all the different stakeholders. Like, why child development is not only the responsibility of the Anganwadi worker, child development is not only the responsibility of the mother. How do we really make this a community responsibility and involve all the different stakeholders? How can we unlock, say, Gram Panchayat funds to actually develop a play area for children? So in Uttar Pradesh, we've actually, the Gram Panchayat allocated land for a little play area for children to come up. And it's now something that is managed by the older children. So that was, those were some examples that I'd be happy to share.
Uh, Gadbo Bachpan, which means Carving Childhood, is our district transformation program for all the Anganwadis in the district Raipur. The larger purpose of the program is to strengthen foundational learning skills of children and making them school ready. We are working on this project in a phased manner. We began with 60 centers and now we are expanding to 600 centers. We are planning to gradually cover all 1886 Anganwadis in the district. In this program, we work with all the stakeholders, including the Anganwadi educators, supervisors, and parents. What we do is we co create small improvement goals with these stakeholders, such as we worked with Anganwadi educators to increase the instructional time in Anganwadi centers by 1 hour. We discussed the steps, the possible steps that they need to follow to implement this particular small goal. In past 4 months, since the time we have implemented the project, we have seen an increase in the total teaching time in all 60 Anganwadis. 90% of the Anganwadi educators implement the daily curriculum. The average attendance has improved, and the participation of parents in Suposhan Chaupal and Poshan Pakhwada has increased. And the most important thing is the educators find themselves more confident to organize and conduct activities with children.
I think Tini and Amita have, laid out all the stories so beautifully of how these initiatives actually change what's happening in class with teachers, with parents, and communities. And I would just add to that. I think with the melas, this we've heard this proverb. It takes a village to raise a child, and I think the village actually comes together. Or in the case of a city, like you said, a gully or a mohalla, a little lane or a mohalla kind of comes alive. And putting together that mela is about the Anganwadi worker, the school teacher, the community volunteers, the panchayat leaders, the sarpanch, everyone actually coming together to see what is all the fuss about, and why are they calling little children and why are they calling their parents. So there's a lot of curiosity, and then there's a lot of engagement, and then people watch and they engage and they help. Many of them volunteer. Some people volunteer their spaces. Some come and try to help the children while they are at it. Some try to bring and collect all the local materials that we need. Some are creating it. And so I think everyone is involved. And what that does is, I think, at least for the early years, it's very important, because with older children, people are aware of exams and papers and so many other things, tuition, so many things that have to happen with older children. With younger children, I think it's the thing ki abhi chota hai. The children are small right now. It's okay if they don't go one day, then they go the next day. So this whole thing, I completely understand. When Amita said attendance increased, so why did attendance increase? Because suddenly people realize that all this play is actually learning, and so my children need to go regularly to class. I need to be doing something with my child at home. I must go and meet that teacher in class, in the Anganwadi, or in school, because this is about the learning of my children. And all of that is very important in the early years. So I think, one, the involvement of every member of that community, whether it's the school systems and Anganwadi systems, or parents and other leaders, that has been fantastic to see. And we couldn't have done any of these melas without them. The other is this increased awareness. And I remember a few years back, we've been running these melas for a long time. And once I remember this, you have these report cards that also go home from this class, from the Anganwadi or from the preschool. And this mother came to class, and she was in a typical sari, covering her head, and standing there trying to talk to the teacher. And then when the teacher said, "Ha, bataiye, tell me, what is this about?" So then she said, "You've written here that my child can't skip a rope." So then the teacher said, "Yes, because I didn't see her doing that." And then this mother pulls out a skipping rope from under her pallu, like she pulls it out of her sari, and gives it to her child and says, "Now you skip here, okay, and show the teacher what you can do." And the teacher was very taken aback. She didn't expect a skipping rope to come out of the pallu of the mother. And then this child skipped. And then the mother said, "Look, my child skips all the time, and I've seen her doing it in the mela. How can you say that she's not able to do it?" So, it was really, I think the teacher actually narrated the story to us, and it was very exciting to see, because the mother actually saw what was happening, and she was able to connect what's happening in class. And the most important, she had the confidence to go to class and say, "Listen, my child can do this." And that's where I feel, that story was, it was very encouraging for the mother, the teacher, but also for us, because suddenly this the vision of this parent was not about looking after her child, but also looking out for her child, to see what is the child able to do and not do. And I think these are the kind of stories which help us, but also help in communication with school systems, to strengthen what we all need to do together in the early years. In another study, in this was in Banaskantha in Gujarat. There we had a small study with about 1,700 mothers, to see if the mothers groups actually work, and why are they so important. So we tried to understand. We worked with mothers who we were working with anyway, and then we also worked with mothers groups, and we tried to compare the learning of the two in terms of awareness, understanding, practice, etc. And we found that one is what we relate with the mothers, but the other is, I think, also what mothers in a group actually do with each other, which is difficult to measure. But when we tried to see if mothers groups were doing better as compared to individual mothers, when it came to understanding of concepts, or spending more time with their children on learning, or in terms of understanding of what all the domains are about and what kind of activities one can do with children at home. On all three counts, we found mothers groups were actually doing much better, as compared to mothers who were not part of the groups. And it didn't matter what the educational level of the mothers was. And this for us was very powerful, because it meant that we are able to take things forward and further with mothers groups in terms of the learning of children. And there are so many examples from mothers groups on what takes place in there, because it goes on throughout the year. Every week there are things that go out there for them. But I think there are millions of such stories with children, with parents, with teachers, which I think we probably haven't even heard many of these stories, but it's actually helping the community where these kind of initiatives are being taken.
Thank you. That was such a cute story of her whipping out a skipping rope and saying, "My child can do that." But and also, like you were sharing, Tini, that fathers now stepping up and realizing that it isn't just the mothers who need to play this role of a primary caretaker in the child's upbringing. And Amita, like you were saying, with this stronger dialogue also. I mean, through all of what you were saying, the stronger dialogue between all the stakeholders, that it's not that learning just ends in the Anganwadi and learning is just with the parent. Like conversation that we are all responsible, and we need to have this conversation to build that understanding of what is best for our children. And that's what's coming through all the stories that you've shared. And if I can ask you, what is it that you hope uh, with your programs and with a deeper understanding with all the stakeholders engaging in these programs and initiatives, and like with this growing understanding of how important it is that it is how children learn is through play, and hence they should be engaging in it in as many ways, with as many people in a safe space as possible. What is it that you hope to see? What kind of impact do you hope to see?
Um, I just hope to, um, I just hope that children have playful learning days in their Anganwadi centers, which help them learn, engage them in a variety of activities, develop their curiosity, make them explore a variety of things. This is what I hope.
If I could build on what Amita said, I think happy childhoods, like if we can have our villages, our towns, where children are really happy, there is space for them to play. They don't children don't need that much. I mean, as you mentioned, a child can also take a box and make that into a plaything too. I mean, so many times you also see children playing with little old cycles also. If we can allow that and also ensure the security around that, so that we're all watching out for children, and that they that investment in having happy childhoods is what we all strive to work towards. So I think all of us, and I think, I mean, I'm also a mother, and I also look back on when my child was growing up. I too felt the happiest when I saw she was happy and she was engaged and she was learning, and when she brought to me the little things that she had made, there was a genuine. So if we can think of happy childhoods, let that be the goal that we all strive towards, and that everything weaves into each other. Like we talk about the 5 pillars of the nurturing care framework, and each one of them is so important, but they are also so interconnected, because early learning also very closely interwoven to nutrition and health. A child will only be able to learn and play if it is well nourished, if it is healthy. So I feel the interconnectedness of all the 5 pillars of the nurturing care framework and the goal and objective of happy childhoods is, I think, what at least I would really strive for.
Yeah, I'll just build on that, build on what Amita and Tini said. And I think, um, parents, ready children, happy children, and an experience that is empowering for all. Many times we feel like, it's not good enough, we are not good enough, they are not good enough. And I think we need to feel empowered that we are and we can do whatever we can. And it's not the responsibility of just one person. Parents coming ahead, teachers coming forward, and children being curious, coming forward, taking the initiative, would make everyone happy. I think there are milestones that are out there in different documents and policies, but anyone who's been with children knows that, you can see it in their eyes, you can see it in what they are doing. Parents also know it. Parents don't need training to recognize that their children are happy, and that they're doing well wherever they are, in class, at home, in interaction with adults, in interaction with children, etc. So I think empowered parents and children, ready families and children, that's what one would look forward to with all these initiatives.
And I think, just to add to what Samyukta said, if we could also facilitate investment in research that will show that play-based learning leads to better child development and all of that. So I think currently, at least for us, the research is a little sporadic, anecdotal, but can we really bring that out so that it kind of builds the case for investing in play in the early years? So I think that is also a need, a requirement. Can we do proper research that actually shows that if you invest in that play and engagement with the child, it actually contributes very strongly to their development and their potential as future citizens. Because play also, like the circle time at Anganwadi center, such a beautiful concept. It has all children sitting together and each one actually sharing. It also builds bonds among themselves. I mean, that is also what we need for friendships to develop and thrive and expand from that early year. You respect, you understand what your neighbor is also doing. There's an empathy. So I'm saying all of these skills are in a way built when children play. When you play, someone falls down, as children rush to pick their fellow child up and kind of say, koi baat nahi, if you've fallen, it's absolutely fine. So I think play is not just like, the whole thing ki ye to the kids are just having a good time, but it's not that. At that time they are also developing so many other skills, so many other feelings that are really going to help them as future citizens. So I think if there could be investment in that research as well, that would be really good.
And move away from this binary of play and learning, right? Yeah. Amita, would you like to add on?
Yeah, what Tinny just mentioned, it reminds me of an experience with pre-primary teachers. So we were doing a worksheet with the pre-primary teachers. So pre-primary teachers is not a very regular thing in government system, right? Many primary teachers have been asked to teach pre-primary sections in many states. So we were doing a worksheet. It's called Playful Worksheet. So we asked them to think of a game or something that they did during their childhood and then fill in the kind of learnings or insights that developed through that particular experience. And they were like, ma'am, इसमें तो कुछ नहीं है, खेल लिए जब खेलना था. And when they thought about it, when they reflected deeper, they realized that they covered all the domains of development while playing their game. So we picked up each and every game and we realized that it touches upon all the domains. There was no game or there was no interaction that they talked about from their childhood experience that did not involve any of these components. So I think this is a very very important thing, that we make play we bring play to the center of all the activities in early years. And what Tini mentioned, that all the five pillars have to be taken care of, because it is not just one area which we need to focus on. So, and research definitely is one thing which we really lag behind. We do not, when we start mentioning about data related to early childhood care and development, we hardly have any research. We only have IECEI report. That's it, from India. So we really need to invest in uh, research in early childhood care and development, specifically vis-a-vis play based pedagogy.
As we're nearing the end of our conversation, can I ask you to share any recommendations that you have? Books, articles, movies, anything that you would like our listeners to engage with?
So I can share some links to just a few, couple of studies that we've done here in Pratham. And if anyone would like to do the Mela, I can share a link to that, and maybe a little around what mothers do, children do, etc. Amita has already mentioned the longitudinal study, the early childhood education in 3 states of India study, and we can share the link to that as well. And recently, I heard a podcast with Sunisha and Pallavi on the importance of play, and I really enjoyed it. So we can share that link too. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll add those in the show notes. Yeah, thank you.
We'd be happy to have people access the Palan 1000 app. It covers all the various domains of the nurturing care framework. We're also happy to share the collection of the messages, for caregivers to really better engage with their children. There are a few films on, that a little bit on the Khel Konas as well. And tomorrow is actually a master class on the Khel Kona, where from three of our geographies in Uttar Pradesh, caregivers will actually dial into the master class. It's in collaboration with Bachpan Manao Badhte Jao, and they're actually going to show the Khel Konas and actually speak about how they've seen the change in their children as a result of the Khel Kona. So we'd really urge everyone to join the Khel Kona masterclass tomorrow, and there will be a recording available as well. We would also really like the concept of songs and lullabies also to be really documented, because there's a lot of I would say like rhythm and all of that that children can pick up when they hear lullabies. So perhaps a focus on that, if we could collectively actually do that, kind of documenting lullabies and songs from different regions of the country, and kind of bringing them together in the geographies where we work. We would be happy to kind of do that, because I feel even lullabies, it's such a beautiful concept. So I think those were some of the thoughts, but happy to share the links, happy to continue to engage on this very beautiful area actually, and to not have these divisions that there's a play time and there's a learning time, but to have them both interwoven as such.
I would like to recommend two, three books that helped me shape my understanding of childhood and engaging with children. One is, of course, Toto Chan. I think everybody is aware of that book. Then Deva Swapna by Gijubhai Badheka. And there is one more book called The Teacher by Sylvia Ashton Warner. So these three books are very good for, I would say, beginners, but I think it's very important for people who have been working in this space for years to also go back to these books and reflect on their own practices. These all three of them talk about the requirements of early childhood. How can we engage with parents, as parents, as teachers, with young children?
Sana, just to add, Tini mentioned lullabies, and so we are actually partnering with Step to put together lullabies, and I think we could increase that repertoire. We're building a collection, and I think the more the merrier. We should do this. I absolutely agree that we should have a whole repository around lullabies in different languages, local contexts, and that would be amazing. And yeah, if there's any I can also share the digital content, anything that parents or teachers would like to use, there's also stuff out there on the Diksha portal for early learning. They also have some bots that can be looked at, and of course, Pratham can share its digital content as well.
Thank you so much. We'll have the links to all of those in the show notes of the episode, so anyone can access it at any point of time. Thank you for making the time. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Sana. Thanks so much, Samyukta and Amita. Lovely to reconnect and continue the dialogue.
Yeah, thanks. I enjoyed the conversation. Thanks, Amita. Thanks, Tini. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.